Am I recording? Hello again, it's me Chaz back with another video. This is my first CAF World Cup qualifying video. The CAF, Confederation of African Football. A total of 54 nations are part of the CAF. All from around Africa. The 2026 World Cup will have a total of 9 nations from the CAF competing and a possible 10. This would be the most African nations to be representing the region. The very first nation to ever compete at the World Cup from the CAF was Egypt, who competed at the second World Cup in Italy in 1934. A total of 13 different nations from Africa have competed at the World Cup, including Morocco, who went the furthest out of any nation in the World Cup, reaching the semi-finals in the most recent World Cup in 2022 Qatar. An African nation has also hosted the World Cup. South Africa hosted the very first World Cup to be in Africa in 2010. And Morocco will be co-hosting the 2030 World Cup with Portugal and Spain. That will be the first World Cup to be hosted in 2 different regions at the same time. And the second World Cup to be hosted by 3 different nations. I should mention this, after 1934, when Egypt did compete for the first time at the World Cup, no African nation did qualify till 1970, where Morocco qualified. Back in 1966, many African nations, well, all of them, boycotted the World Cup because African nations at the time, along with Asian nations, didn't get an automatic spot. They would have to compete to get that. So since then, at least one African nation, one nation from the CAF and one nation from the AFC could qualify for a World Cup, and it's expanded over the years. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this World Cup will have 9 nations from the CAF and a possible 10. Similar with the AFC as well, they have 8 nations or possible 9 that will qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Alright, so let's check how the World Cup qualifiers work out. So there is a total of 9 groups of 6. The winner of each group will qualify for the 2026 World Cup, and the 4 best runners-up will go to the second round to have another chance to compete at the World Cup. The second round works like this. The 4 nations will be drawn against each other in a knockout competition. Whoever wins the semi-final and then the final will get one final opportunity to compete at the 2026 World Cup. They'll be drawn into the Inter-Confederation playoffs, along with 1 nation from the OFC, 1 nation from the AFC, 1 nation from the CONMEBOL, and 2 nations from the CONCACAF. And then with the Inter-Confederation playoffs, the top ranked teams will only have to play 1 match. The 6 nations will be split into 2 slots. The 2 low-ranking teams will go up against each other, and whoever wins that will go up against one of the top-ranked teams and win that final game. You qualify for the World Cup. There are 2 Inter-Confederation spots up for grabs for the 5 other confederations. UEFA Zone have their own playoffs system. Okay, that's how it works for the CAF. That's how the nations from Africa could qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Let's check the groups. Alright, so we got Group A. Group A has Egypt, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso, Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. Only one of these nations in this group has qualified for a World Cup before, that is Egypt. mentioned in the past, they are the first African nation to compete at the World Cup. With that said, even though they are the first, amongst the nations that have qualified for the World Cup from the CAF, they've only qualified on 3 different occasions. With this system now, I believe there'll be more chances for Egypt to qualify for the World Cup in the future. And as you can see in this group, they are top with 4 points clear of Guinea-Bissau, who are on 6 points. So Egypt in a good position right now. Still a lot to play though. Move on to Group B. Group B has Sudan, Senegal, DR Congo, Togo, South Sudan, and Mauritania. Half of the nations in this group have competed at the World Cup before: Senegal, Togo, and Democratic Republic of Congo, who, when they did compete at the World Cup in 1974, was known as Zaire. Sudan are top of this group, as you can see, and look like they're on their way to qualify for their very first World Cup, though they're only 2 points clear of Senegal and 3 clear of DR Congo. Senegal, best performance at a World Cup would be 2002, where they were knocked out in the quarterfinals by the golden goal rule against Turkey. Togo competed at their very first World Cup, first and only one, in 2006. Group C, let's move on to Group C. Group C has Rwanda, South Africa, Benin, Lesotho, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. 2 nations in this group have qualified for the World Cup before, and one of them have hosted it, and that's South Africa in 2010. They competed at their very first World Cup in 1998. Nigeria, the other nation in this group that has competed at the World Cup before. Alright, we move on to Group D. Group D has Cameroon, Libya, Cape Verde, Angola, Mauritius, and Eswatini all make up Group D. Today, I should say yesterday, because I'm filming around about midnight, but I watched the game between Cameroon and Eswatini. The game was interesting, I'll say that. Both keepers didn't have much to do for either team. Eswatini was quite disciplined in defence, and they didn't always just defend. They did try and go at it at times, but lacked it in the final third, to be fair. Cameroon didn't seem urgent enough in this game, and again it was a match between the top team in Group D and the bottom team, and Cameroon wasn't urgent enough to try and get themselves those 3 points. Definitely a big setback for them, and with Libya and Cape Verde only being 2 points behind them, it's a chance they could end up being third next week. Positive point for Eswatini, but they really need a win for their next game to have any chance of qualifying for this World Cup. It will be their first if they do. In this group, Cameroon and Angola are the only nations that have qualified for the World Cup in the past. I believe Cameroon has qualified for the most World Cups out of any nation in Africa, and their best run would be the 1990 World Cup, where they reached the quarterfinals. They were knocked out by England in extra time. That same World Cup, Cameroon was able to defeat the reigning champions at the time, Argentina. Argentina didn't make it to the finals. They met each other in the group stage. Angola qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 2006 themselves. Alright, let's move to Group E. Group E's interesting. Take a few notes. The teams in Group E originally: Morocco, Niger, Tanzania, Zambia, Congo and Eritrea. But before the tournament even started, the qualifying round started, Eritrea did withdraw. I believe that was political reasons why they withdrew. I personally didn't look too deep into what happened there. And I only found this out about a week ago, but Congo have been suspended. They were suspended back in February. Something to do with government interference. So FIFA, the CAF suspended Congo. So with 2 teams suspended, now it's just 4 teams in this group. I should say Morocco are the only team in this group that has qualified for the World Cup, and as mentioned earlier, they are the only nation from the CAF to ever reach the semi-finals. They were knocked out by France, who were the runners-up of 2022. Should also mention this though with Morocco. Morocco knocked out both Spain and Portugal during their 2022 run. I mentioned they are co-hosting the 2030 World Cup. Morocco are 3 points clear. Morocco are the only nation so far in the World Cup qualifiers in the CAF to have 100% record. Group F now. Group F have Ivory Coast, who have qualified for a World Cup in the past. Couple of them: Gabon, Burundi, Kenya, Gambia, and Seychelles. I mentioned the only team that has qualified for the World Cup before, Ivory Coast. In this group, I should say, Ivory Coast are top, 1 point ahead of Gabon. Still close between those 2 nations. This international break, in this group, you have the top 2 going against the bottom 2. A few more groups left. Got Group G, have Algeria, Mozambique, Botswana, Guinea, Uganda, and Somalia. This group is extremely close, with Algeria and Mozambique both first and second with 9 points, but third, fourth and fifth, Botswana, Guinea and Uganda all have 6 points. Very close. Somalia, bottom of this group, haven't won a game at all. This group's definitely one to look out for. Algeria is the only team in this group, again, that have qualified for a few World Cups in the past. I think it was 2014. They played well against Germany. Germany ended up winning that World Cup, but they had a good game against them in the knockout round. Yeah, they're quite impressive. Well, yeah, this is a very interesting group to look at. I'm definitely going to check it out a lot more when I've got time. Alright, Group H, there was a game on yesterday that I did watch. That was Tunisia against Liberia. Liberia was playing at home. 1-0 win for Tunisia. I thought both keepers put on a good performance for their teams, but unfortunately it wasn't a draw, which I thought maybe a draw, but I think Tunisia, long run, probably deserved the win more. But yeah, 1-0 win for Tunisia over Liberia. The other nations in the group is Namibia, Malawi, Equatorial Guinea, and Sao Tome and Principe. Now, Tunisia's win put them 5 points clear of Namibia. Namibia do have a game in hand though. They are playing today on the 20th. Hopefully, if I do upload this early enough, they will be playing today on the 20th of March. Again, Tunisia are the only team in this group to have ever qualified for a World Cup. Okay, and finally, Group I. Group I had Madagascar, who had a great win today, or I should say yesterday. 4-1 victory over Central African Republic. It's a good win that takes them a point clear of Comoros, who are playing Mali today. And Ghana's in this group as well, the only team in this group to have qualified for a World Cup in the past. Their best performance being in 2010 in South Africa, where they were a penalty shootout away for qualifying against Uruguay. think we all remember Suarez's handball in that match. And the other nation in this group is Chad. Pretty close with the top 3 teams, but a win for Mali would put them amongst the top 3 themselves. So definitely need a win for them. Alright, that's the groups. And that's my explanation of the CAF and how the World Cup qualifiers work in that region. With Morocco making it to the semi-finals in the last World Cup, they've definitely given more African nations at least a little more hope that they could go all the way and maybe one day win it. Again, with a total of 9 nations from Africa having a chance to compete at the World Cup, and again a possible 10. This is probably one of the biggest opportunities an African nation will have to win the World Cup. This is my first video for the CAF, the CAF, and there will be more. Thanks for watching, listening, appreciate it as usual, and bye.